concept of dooming, or the ideology of it being over, and just overall being very negative with a general pessimism about life, has gained more traction recently, particularly on right-wing social media. However, as enticing or intelligent as it may sound to be the one who is burdened with knowledge, while the normies go about their lives blissfully ignorant, you should never doom. Even if it's true that the West has fallen, it can rise again like an Aryan phoenix from the ashes. The idea of dooming is not only one of the worst beliefs you can hold for your own personal success, but it makes you just as bad, and if not worse, than those who actively participate in or encourage evil, degeneracy, or other destructive behaviors in our society. And the worst part about it all is that due to the nature of modern social media platforms, engaging with this kind of content is just going to end up putting you in an echo chamber. You will be reduced to the same level as a Reddit leftist midwit, with your entire worldview being filtered through an overly negative, completely retarded, nonsensical lens. To you, the world will be much worse than it already is, albeit it is often grim. And before I go into why these ideas have gained traction and why they are indeed incredibly harmful, it's certainly important to define what these terms mean, Who is this 4chan? What does it mean to doom? Dooming is a very particular set of ideas. It's not necessarily an ideology or a universal worldview, as a prerequisite of something being over is that at some point it was something. Thus, I must conclude that dooming is entirely circumstantial. It is not universally applicable, nor really logical. But I would define dooming as this idea that there's nothing that you can do to fix the world's problems, that there's nothing that can be done. It is a pessimism combined with helplessness, the idea that you cannot create change, you cannot make things better, things will not improve, things will get worse. It is the idea that no matter how hard you try, it will not matter, and that your efforts are ultimately in vain. And this idea has always existed online. It has just been much more niche, and in the mainstream it was always just kind of a meme, the whole joke of, it's over, we're so back. However, now I'm seeing it more in the mainstream zeitgeist, this sort of descent in idea that there's nothing that can be done. And now is a great time to actually go into why it has become more popular. I think a large reason why dooming has shifted into the mainstream is because mass politics has expanded dramatically due to modern social media. Previously, most politics given to the masses was just through television, which is incredibly biased and filtered to support, a party or interest group or funding source, whatever that may be. And social media is incredibly distinct, as anyone can share what they believe. Although people have been censored often when criticizing a certain group, in general, social media is certainly more open than traditional or mainstream news was ever capable of being. Additionally, due to the fact that controversial and negative content generally has better click-through rate with more comments, shares, or what have you, naturally, most of the political content that someone will be fed on their feed will end up being negative. Social media has allowed for many niche ideas to become mainstream, letting people see the sheer scale of politics. And this is demonstrably true through how certain more niche ideas have become popular, such as the Israeli influence in United States politics. You go on Instagram, every video is going to have a Tel Aviv impressor, I'm from Israel and this is my favorite video. And although it is just memes and most people don't take it very seriously, it does have a reflection of their inner or subconscious belief, with this case just being foreign influence in the United States and the power of the mass elite. Another great example is how the Epstein files, where nothing tangible really happened in the United States, just ended up being another trend for the golem to consume. And along with the other factors I will discuss within modern social media, this just creates a complete recipe for disaster. Another reason that dooming has become mainstream is because of how black pill has become mainstream, which used to be niche. And although this may sound strange, it makes sense when you think about it. Black pill, the general idea, is genetic determinism, the idea that you cannot fix many of your issues, and although you can try, ultimately you have an upper limit, right? The idea that looks are incredibly important, which is true, certainly true. Hypergamy, for example, that is a true phenomenon, and with modern women and men to an extent as well. And when you just have all of these problems or these harsh truths being shown through social media, where it is a large portion of what people see, it's ultimately going to make their lives seem rather hopeless. Especially considering the fact that with the modern world, it is more divided than it has been in a long time. People are very isolated as well. We are told by the modern ideals, by modern liberalism, that we are just individuals. We do not belong to a community, that loving your community or your race or your religion is evil in the Western world. And this ultimately just isolates people into believing that they are by themselves and that there's all this evil around them and there's nothing they can do about it. And the most dangerous part about doomer ideas in general is that there is a large portion of it that is true. Even going beyond what I've already discussed, housing has become expensive. The cost of living has been going up in the past few years, which is being highlighted, and people often don't realize a lot of things have in fact gotten cheaper, such as cars and televisions, that sort of thing. But another large reason why the doomer mindset has become more popular is that it gives you an easy sense of intellectualism, a false sense of intellectualism, really, because it is very easy when you are being fed this negative content to look at others and think, well, look at these golems going about their lives. They're happy and blissfully ignorant, but I know the dark truth. I am burdened with reality. But in reality, most of these individuals who think this way are the same as the masses they look down upon, although they may be slightly more knowledgeable. But ultimately, they do not know much. They are still just listening to whatever they are being fed online. They are no better than average Joe just watching Fox News, right? And this allows the ideology to thrive because it's grounded in reality, is amplified by social media and the popularization of niche ideas, and the fact that people want to feel like they are part of an in-group niche ideas, which allows this despair to spread. In the next section, I will discuss how, although there is some truth to this outlook, ultimately, in totality, it is false and harmful. Dooming, although based in truth, is excessive in its conclusions. It pushes this idea that it is over, that there's nothing we can do, just simply because it is not easy to solve the problem. The idea that, say, since you cannot vote away foreign influence, there's no point in voting anymore. The idea that because you were born with bad genetics, there's no point trying to be attractive anymore. And all this is, in reality, is learned helplessness. It is pathetic. It is the idea that just because things are not easy, or that you as an individual cannot do things, or that they cannot be completed within your lifetime, means that you shouldn't try. Imagine if the Spanish stopped trying during the Reconquista. Spain would be a Muslim country. Possibly all of Europe would be Muslim. Although based off of the demographics of Europe, it seems like the Reconquista may have been in vain the whole time. But I digress. The idea that because things may seem impossible, or that they are stacked against you, you should stop trying, is pathetic. It is weakness, and that's all it is. It is a weakness that cannot be tolerated if we do wish to actually bring change to the world. It is a non-caring apathy about everything, which is what makes it so evil. It makes efforts seem pointless. It makes you not even care about wanting to be better. And I have personal experience with these ideas. I was, in the past, very invested in the whole it's over mindset, both personally and politically. I am not a very big fan of democracy, so when I looked at the current system, I thought there was nothing that could be done with it. It's over. There was no point. I would have to wait until the system would collapse, or die while waiting. I shouldn't do anything. That is what I believed. And it was just this pathetic mindset I had. It was a weak mindset that I had. And the reason that I became so entrenched with it was because of social media. The algorithms feeding me exclusive negative content. My feed would feature a video about a politician raping someone and getting away with it. And then the next video would be a black pill edit, as funny as it sounds. Or about migration in Europe, where, he kills 5 people and then because he's a migrant, he gets a day of community service, or he just flees to the next nation in Europe. And occasionally, I would get positive content, but ultimately, the positive content I would get would just be nostalgia for the past. Look how good things were, and how horrible they are. And as a result, I was miserable. My view of the world was horrible, and I couldn't get anything done. I was lazy. And you need to recognize that things cannot be done easily. Anything that's worth doing is hard. Right? To create actual change, you have to put in decades, centuries of effort. And often, you will not get all that you want. You will not have perfection, which, although this is a topic for another video, you do need to reject perfection and embrace failure, embrace difficulty. You know, if you can't become a top 1% powerlifter, does that mean you shouldn't work out? Obviously not. If you won't be as rich as Elon Musk, does that mean you shouldn't try to make money? Obviously not. It is pathetic, but I do empathize with those who believe this truly, because there is truth to it. There is evil in the world, but you need to fight evil. You cannot let evil win. A great alternative idea, or an alternative way to look at the world, is to embrace the idea that you are hope. You need to live for something greater than yourself, and use that as your motivation to fight against evil, and for what is good, for change. Why you should live for something greater than yourself, and why having goals is important is another topic for another video. But once again, I digress. You know, you cannot give up against evil, because that is just as bad as committing evil. You are letting evil happen. That's why I said at the beginning, embracing dooming is just as bad as promoting degeneracy. You must do whatever you can to fight evil. Now, I do not advocate for violence, but you need to create a world for your children that will be better. Even if you make a small change, like actually trying to vote. And even if the politician that you vote for, whatever they do, even if it's small change, over generations, that could snowball into massive change. Additionally, you must recognize that if you cannot help the world, you can help yourself and your community. You as an individual cannot change the world. That is true. But you as an individual can change your community. You can help the homeless. You can help rebuild someone's home after a disaster. You can create a church, whatever you want to do. You can bring good to the world. You must recognize that evil will never go away. Evil will continue to attack until the end of time. But rather than using that as a reason to give up, use that as your reason to fight. This is my first time trying long-form content, so if you like what I have to say, or my gameplay for that matter, please consider subscribing. Thank you.